Welcome to this deep dive, everyone. Today we're going to be looking at, a chapter from the Guguzi.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's an ancient Chinese text.
I've heard of it.
It's over 2,000 years old,
Yeah.
and this chapter is all about this concept called Bai He. It's basically it means opening and closing.
Okay.
Okay?
Opening and closing. So what's the big idea with this whole opening and closing thing?
Yeah, so the Guguzi is really fascinating. It's not just some ancient text, you know.
Hmm.
He has all this wisdom that's still super relevant to like how we live today.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like it can give us insights into leadership, decision making, even like personal growth,
Yeah.
stuff we all deal with.
Yeah, for sure.
So this chapter, chapter one, it kind of sets the foundation for Bai He, which, like I said, it basically means opening and closing,
Okay.
but it's deeper than it sounds.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's like a framework for understanding when to reveal something, when to conceal something, when to, kind of push forward, when to hold back.
interesting.
Yeah. And it's not just for like big decisions or anything. It can apply to like running a business
Okay.
or having a difficult conversation
Oh, wow. Yeah,
or anything, really.
that's pretty cool.
Okay. So let's jump right into the text. The first part introduces us to like this figure. It calls them the sage.
The sage.
Yeah. The sage is someone who's basically mastered this art of Bai He.
Okay. Gotcha.
And so they observe the interplay of yin and yang, its opening and closing, to name and categorize all things.
Okay.
So they're not just like sitting on a mountaintop. They're really understanding these fundamental forces that are driving the universe
I see.
and using that knowledge to like navigate the world effectively.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's like they're playing, 4D chess while everyone else is just stuck in checkers.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
So, what kind of stuff are we talking about here? Like, what kinds of things did they observe?
Right. So the text goes on to say that the sage understood the thresholds of existence and non-existence. Which, like, whoa, right.
The thresholds of existence and non-existence, that's pretty intense.
Yeah, it is. So it's not about, like, literally predicting the future or anything.
Yeah.
It's more about understanding the potential outcomes of, like, actions and situations. Recognizing those tipping points where things can shift,
Yeah.
from one state to another.
Oh, okay.
It's like a surfer, right?
Oh, okay.
They're not just reacting to the wave that's already there. They're anticipating, reading the waves,
Yeah.
knowing when to, paddle, when to ride.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
So it's about more than just reacting to what's already happening. It's about like being proactive and anticipating those changes.
Being ahead of the curve.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And the text even goes on to say that the sage, they guarded and governed these thresholds. So they're not just observing, they're actually shaping events by using their understanding of these natural cycles.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating. So they're kind of like, what's the word? Like, they're influencing the flow of things?
Yeah, exactly. Like they're not just letting things happen to them, they're actively participating.
Okay.
But, this is all ancient wisdom.
Yeah.
How does it actually play out in like our modern world? Like what's a real world example of this Bai He in action?
That's a great question. Let's say, let's imagine a CEO, right? They're deciding when to launch this like totally new product.
Okay, yeah, high stakes.
High stakes, exactly. So they've got this amazing technology and they're so ready to like get it out there.
Right, they want to share it with the world.
Exactly. But they also like have to be strategic about it.
Yeah, timing is everything, right?
It really is. If they like launch too early, the market might not be ready.
Or someone could, steal their ideas.
Right. Or like if they wait too long, they might completely miss their chance.
Yeah, it's a tough call.
It is. So they're standing there like at the edge of a diving board,
Ooh, I like that.
trying to figure out how deep the water is and if there are any other swimmers in their way.
And when to jump, yeah.
Exactly. And, this CEO also has to think about how much information to reveal.
Right, they want to generate buzz, but they also have to protect, their secrets.
Exactly. So they're using opening to create excitement, but closing to protect their advantage.
It's a delicate balance.
It really is.
Yeah.
And that's what the Guiguzi is all about. Understanding those nuances and making the right moves at the right time.
It's not just about like being secretive or being like totally transparent. It's about knowing when to do which, right?
Exactly. And the Guiguzi, it goes into a lot more detail about these nuances.
That's
It
right.
talks about the dynamics of yin and yang.
Oh yeah, the classic
It says, transformation is boundless, and all things have their destined place, some tending toward yin, others to yang, some soft, others firm, some opening, others closing, some relaxing, others tightening.
So many opposites.
Therefore, the sage remains steadfast in their watch.
Wow. So they're watching how all these forces are interacting constantly.
Exactly. And adapting like a conductor leading an orchestra.
Oh, I love that.
Knowing when to bring in the strings, when to let the brass shine.
When to like let the music swell.
Yeah.
When to have that like moment of quiet anticipation.
Exactly. It's all about, harmonizing these different elements to achieve a desired outcome.
But it's not just intuition, right?
Right. The text actually emphasizes that it's also about being deliberate.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it says that the sage governs the thresholds, carefully examining the order of precedence, measuring balance and capability, and evaluating the strengths and weaknesses of skill and strategy.
So they're really analyzing things.
Exactly. They're not just going with their gut. They're looking at the facts, the resources, the potential roadblocks. It's about making really informed decisions.
Wow. Okay.
So it's not just instinct. It's really about careful observation and analysis.
That makes a lot of sense. But if the sage is so focused on understanding these cycles, influencing these cycles, does that mean they're always like manipulating events?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Like, is there a danger of becoming too controlling, trying to force things to go your way?
That is a really interesting question. And actually, the text, it addresses that directly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the next passage, it talks about non-interference.
Wait, non-interference?
I know, right? It sounds kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah, totally. How can you be a master of like opening and closing and also practice non-interference?
It does seem a little paradoxical.
Yeah.
But here's where the Giguzi gets really interesting.
Okay, I'm listening.
It suggests that sometimes true mastery involves stepping back and letting things like unfold naturally.
Interesting.
It's about, creating the right conditions for growth and success, but not trying to micromanage every single detail.
Oh, so instead of trying to control everything, they're more like a gardener.
Exactly.
They're providing the right environment for things to flourish on their own.
Think about like a manager who micromanages their team versus a manager who empowers their employees to like take ownership of their work.
Oh, yeah.
Which approach do you think is going to lead to like more success?
Definitely the second one.
Right, the one that allows for more like natural development. It's pretty cool how the Giguzi challenges our ideas about leadership and control.
Yeah, it really does. And it's not just about leadership, right? This idea applies to personal growth, too.
Oh, absolutely. Have you ever noticed like the more you try to force something, the more it like resists you?
Oh, all the time. Like
Yeah.
trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Exactly. Sometimes the best way to achieve something is to let go of our rigid expectations and allow things to like unfold more organically.
That makes a lot of sense. True mastery is not just about taking action, but also about knowing when to like step back and let things happen naturally.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's like non-interference. But how do we know when to do what? Like, how does the sage actually gather information, assess the situation?
Good question. The text says, examine carefully the presence and absence, the real and the unreal, and follow one's desires to discern their intentions.
Okay, so they're really paying attention, noticing everything.
They're also looking at what people do, their body language, their motivations. It's like they're detectives trying to solve a mystery.
Ooh, I like that analogy. So they're using Bai He to gather information, to influence the outcome.
Precisely. They know information is power, and they use opening and closing to control the flow of that information.
Wow. It's like a guide to persuasion and negotiation. And it's over 2,000 years old.
I know, it's incredible, right?
It is. Okay, so we've talked about gathering information. What about actually taking action?
Okay, so for that, the text gives us this. To open is to gauge their disposition. To close is to establish their sincerity. By observing the balance of weight and measure, the sage calculates accordingly. When the balance and measure do not align, the sage adjusts their own considerations.
So it's all about finding the right balance between action and reflection, assertiveness, and restraint.
Exactly. It's like that saying, measure twice, cut once. The sage doesn't just jump into things, they think it through.
It's like, think about conflict resolution. Sometimes you have to be really direct, set boundaries. But other times it's better to just listen and, like, find common ground.
Exactly. It all comes back to knowing when to open and when to close.
This is making so much sense. Okay, so we've seen how Bai He works in, like, personal situations. But the Guguzzi also talks about how it connects to the bigger picture, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It emphasizes that this isn't just about personal strategy. It's about aligning with the natural order of things.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the next passage says, to open may mean to release or to receive. To close may mean to take or to reject. The dynamics of opening and closing reflect the way of heaven and earth.
Whoa.
They govern the transformation of yin and yang, the opening and closing of the four seasons, and the transformation of all things.
So it's like it's everywhere.
Through expansion and contraction, reversal and opposition, all must pass through this principle.
Wow. So Bai-He is not just a human concept. It's like woven into the fabric of the universe.
It's like going with the flow instead of fighting against the current.
Exactly. Yeah. We can find more harmony, be more effective if we align our actions with these natural cycles.
And it gets even deeper. The next part really connects the personal and the cosmic. It says, opening and closing represent the grand transformations of the way and the variations of speech.
Okay.
These changes must be carefully anticipated, for fortune and misfortune, life and death are tied to them.
Wow. That's pretty intense.
The mouth is the threshold of the heart, and the heart is the master of the spirit. Intentions, desires, thoughts, and schemes all pass through these thresholds.
So it's saying, like, our words have real power.
Huge power.
We need to be really careful about how we use them.
Thus, they are governed by opening and closing and regulated by their movements in and out.
Wow, that's profound. It's like our communication is a reflection of our inner state, right?
Absolutely.
And when we're balanced, when we're aware, when we're intentional, our words carry more weight. They have a more positive impact.
Exactly. It's a really powerful framework for navigating all sorts of interactions.
Okay, I'm totally seeing how understanding Bai-He could help me be more effective in my communication, in my decision-making. But can we maybe look at some more concrete examples? Like, how does this all play out in different scenarios?
Oh, absolutely. Let's go back to that CEO we were talking about. Remember, they've developed this cutting-edge technology, and they're ready to launch their product.
Right, they're on the diving board.
Exactly. So this is a make-or-break moment for them. Timing is critical.
Yeah. So how do they use Bai-He to make the best decision?
Well, they need to consider everything, not just their product, but the market, the competition, the economy.
So it's more than just having a great idea.
Way more. They need to assess if it's the right time to open, to unveil their big innovation.
Oh, that makes sense. Because, like we said, if they launch too early, it might not work.
Right. And competitors might try to copy them.
But if they wait too long, they might miss their chance altogether.
Exactly. So it's all about timing, like waiting for the perfect wave.
I love that analogy. So they don't get wiped out, but they also don't miss the wave.
Perfect. And, the CEO also has to be smart about what they reveal, what they keep secret. They want to generate excitement, but also protect their ideas.
So it's that balance again. Opening to attract people, but closing to keep their advantage.
Exactly. They might show off some features at a big event, but keep the really important details secret until everything is legally protected.
That's a smart strategy.
It is. And these same principles apply to, situations beyond just business. Like, what about diplomacy?
Oh, yeah, that's a high-pressure situation for sure.
Yeah.
Like, how would Bai-He work in a negotiation between two countries that haven't been getting along?
Well, the diplomats would need to be masters of Bai-He, knowing when to reveal their position, when to hold back, when to push, when to compromise.
Wow, that's a lot of pressure.
It is. They might decide to offer some concessions, to show good faith and build trust.
Okay, so that's the opening part,
Yeah.
showing they're willing to work together.
Right. But they also have to be careful not to give away too much.
Yeah, they can't lose their bargaining power.
Exactly. So that's the closing part, holding back some information to maintain their position.
I see. So they're constantly adjusting, trying to find the right balance.
Exactly, like a dance.
Yeah, where each side is trying to lead, but also follow at the same time.
That's a great way to put it. It's like a delicate dance of diplomacy.
And it's all guided by Bai-He. Wow, it's fascinating how this ancient concept can be applied to so many different things.
It really is. And it's not just about these big, dramatic scenarios. Bai-He is just as relevant to, personal growth.
Oh, really?
Absolutely. Think about someone who's trying to learn a new skill or overcome a fear. There are times when they need to push themselves to open to new experiences.
Yeah, like to learn to swim, you have to get in the water.
Exactly. That's the yang energy, the active, outward-focused energy. But there are also times when you need to step back to reflect on what you've learned.
So that's the yin energy.
Exactly. More introspective, inward-focused. Sometimes the most courageous thing is knowing when to rest.
Yeah, to be kind to yourself, to give yourself time to process.
Right. It's all about balance, finding that sweet spot between pushing forward and allowing for rest.
It's like in sports, if you train too hard, you can get injured. Sometimes pushing too hard can actually set you back.
Right. It's about finding that sustainable rhythm.
So it's not about pushing all the time. It's about knowing when to push and when to pause.
Exactly. When to be bold and when to be receptive.
This is amazing. It really does apply to so many different areas of life.
It really does. And remember, it's not about applying these principles in isolation.
Hmm.
It's about understanding how they all work together.
Right. So it's not just opening or closing. It's the interplay between those forces.
Exactly. Remember what the text said about how everything is connected? The cycles of nature, yin and yang, the seasons. It's about seeing the bigger picture and how Bai-He operates on all these different levels.
Wow. It's about tuning in to those rhythms and working with them instead of against them.
And when you start seeing the world like that, it can be incredibly powerful.
Now, we talked about applying Bai-He to specific situations, but I'm curious about the bigger picture. Like, what kind of mindset does it cultivate?
Well, one big takeaway is the importance of adaptability.
Okay. Being flexible.
Yeah, exactly. The sage is always adjusting, never rigidly stuck to one plan.
So it's about being able to pivot when things change, which is like an essential skill these days.
Totally. It's about embracing change, seeing it as a chance to grow and learn, not something to fear.
I like that. What else?
Well, another big takeaway is the emphasis on observation, awareness. The sage is always paying attention, gathering information, reading between the lines.
So they're fully present.
Exactly. It's about cultivating that mindful awareness that lets you respond to whatever happens.
Okay. You know, I'm also sensing a theme of humility.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more.
Well, if you're always observing, adapting, it means you're admitting you don't have all the answers, right?
Right. It's about being open to learning new perspectives, admitting you might be wrong.
So Bai-He is about confidence, but also humility, about assertiveness, but also being open to influence.
Exactly. It's amazing how it embraces all these seemingly opposite qualities.
It's what makes it so brilliant. It's not a rigid set of rules. It's a dynamic system that lets you respond to life's challenges.
It's like a philosophy, a way of approaching life with wisdom and grace.
I love that. And it's a philosophy that's still relevant today, even after 2,000 years.
It really is. The wisdom of the Guguzi is timeless.
So true. Okay, we've covered so much today exploring this concept of Bai-He. It's really incredible how this ancient text is so insightful.
I know. It's packed with wisdom about leadership, strategy, communication, personal growth.
And it's not just theory. We've seen how you can actually use these principles in real life.
In business, diplomacy, even just improving yourself.
It's like having a secret toolkit ready to help you with whatever life throws at you.
And remember, it's not about manipulating or controlling others. It's about understanding human nature, building relationships, and working in harmony with the flow of things.
It's about riding the wave instead of getting swept under.
Exactly. And when you embrace Bai-He, you can achieve amazing things.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dives, what's the one key takeaway you'd like our listeners to remember?
That's a tough one. But I think it has to be the importance of balance.
Balance, okay.
Yeah, that sweet spot the sage strives for, between opening and closing, advancing and retreating, taking action and reflecting.
Finding that flow, that harmony.
Right, which allows for growth, progress, fulfillment.
And it's not a fixed point, right? That balance is always shifting.
Exactly. Just like the cycles of nature, it's an ongoing practice.
A journey. Never quite mastered, always unfolding.
Beautifully said. It's a journey worth taking.
I agree. And as our listeners continue that journey, we'd like to leave them with this final thought from the Guguzi. It says, "The mouth is the threshold of the heart, and the heart is the master of the spirit. Intentions, desires, thoughts, and schemes all pass through these thresholds."
Deep stuff.
It is. Thus, they are governed by opening and closing and regulated by their movements in and out.
Think about what that means for you, for your communication, your interactions.
How can you use Bai-He to make sure your words and actions are aligned with your deepest intentions?
That's the challenge and the opportunity.
Well said. We hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the ancient wisdom of the Guguzi. It's like that saying, words can destroy and words can heal. You know,
Yeah, it's powerful.
the Guguzi is reminding us that what we say reflects, like our inner state.
It's true.
And when we're balanced and aware and intentional, our words, they just have a bigger impact.
They really do.
Okay, I'm definitely seeing how Bai-He can, help me be more effective in my communication, in my decision-making. What's like the one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
That's a good question. I think it has to be the importance of balance.
Balance, okay.
Yeah, that delicate equilibrium that the sage is always striving for, between opening and closing, advancing and retreating, taking action and reflecting.
Finding that sweet spot, that harmony.
Right. Which allows for growth, progress, and fulfillment.
And it's not static, is it? That balance is always shifting.
Exactly. Just like the cycles of nature.
So it's an ongoing practice.
A journey of self-discovery and constant improvement.
Never quite mastered, always unfolding.
Beautifully said. It's a journey worth taking.
It really is. And as our listeners continue on that journey, we wanted to leave them with this final thought from the Giguzi. It says, "The mouth is the threshold of the heart, and the heart is the master of the spirit. Intentions, desires, thoughts, and schemes all pass through these thresholds."
Wow, that's powerful.
It is. Thus, they are governed by opening and closing and regulated by their movements in and out.
So think about what that means for you.
Yeah, for how you communicate, how you interact with the world.
How can you use the principles of Bai-He to make sure your words and actions are aligned with your deepest intentions?
That's the challenge and the opportunity.
Well said.
Well, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the ancient wisdom of the Giguzi. We'll be back next time with another set of fascinating source materials. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.